Hi guys, I see you all popping on. You can say hi and we'll welcome you into the Kaur Voices space. I'm going to wait for a few more of you to jump on and then we'll get started. Hi Ravinder. Who else is there? You can all say hi. Hi Jay. Hi Amandeep. Where is everyone listening from? Hi Sarabjeet. Lovely. I'm seeing some new names and faces popping up. What's the topic today? It's a surprise. It's going to be a wonderful conversation. So I'm going to say to you, stay tuned to have your minds blown. Hi, Ravinder from Minnesota. Hi, Harijot. Wonderful Harijot Singh. So I want to welcome everybody to Core Voices. This is your space for your voice. The topics that you want to be talking about, that you want us to lift the taboos on, break the silence, and smash the shame. This is what we want to do in this space. A few housekeeping rules is that this is a space of openness and no judgment. And I would be very grateful to see that reflected in the comments. Past few weeks, there were a few edgy comments, and it's difficult to talk about things that make us uncomfortable. It's even more difficult when you're posed and faced with negativity. So I would ask if we can be supportive to each other and hold that space so that we can figure this out together. Nobody has the perfect answers, but when we share dialogue and we share our stories, then it means that we have a space to heal and explore and support each other. And that's what Core Voices is about. If you haven't already been over to the Core Voices Facebook page, go over there and hit like. We've just set it up, so we're going to be bringing up some more beautiful content for you. And if you like what you're seeing in these shows, then I humbly request you go and support us at corevoices.org. Today on the show, I welcome a wonderful sister and an amazing guest, Maisha Dyson. She's a former actress, professor, entrepreneur turned author, public speaker, and creative producer. Sorry, I can't speak today. Maisha Dyson is also a radio and television presenter, which is amazing. Her latest project, United We Slay, Maisha inspires women and girls of color by sharing the untold stories of badass women in sports, entertainment, business, lifestyle, and culture, disrupting the way women are portrayed in the world and in an effort to discover what women empowerment truly is. This is something that we all need in our lives, and I am honored to welcome Maisha to Core Voices.
Thank,
Welcome.
thank you so much for having me, Jasvir. Such an honor to be here with you today.
Thank you, Maisha, for being in this space. I think that it's very what do I say, wonderful for communities to come together. And often there can be too many divides um, of especially between the brown and the black communities. And this is a conversation that we've been having over a few weeks.
Yeah,
And we need to do more to actually bridge those gaps and have conversations together because underneath it all, we're all the same, we're all one.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think those conversations can be led a lot easier when we operate from a place of being human first
Mm.
and recognizing that we're a part of humanity.
Absolutely. And those are actually the values that sit at the heart of Sikhi, which is the faith that I practice. And it's the messaging that's supported in this space on SickNet of
Yeah.
oneness and unity, and that together we're stronger.
Yes. Because the truth is, underneath the skin, we have the same parts,
Mm.
right? We were born healthy with everything intact.
Mm-hmm.
Difference is what I call the sun may have kissed us a little bit longer, right? Different hues.
Mm-hmm.
And then culturally, depending on where we're descendants from, our experiences in the world would be different. It's just a different story being told based on where you're from. And
Absolutely.
so from that point, if you can develop empathy and curiosity to start and ask your
Mm-hmm.
brothers and sisters just about what's your experience, it is what it is. It's not a against, it's a this is my experience, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
so, therefore you can welcome each person in front of you and just listen, you know, in that regard. So
Yes, this is like this resonates so deeply with me, and I'm sure with everybody that's listening as well, because
mhm,
the founder of the Sikh faith, Guru Nanak,
mhm.
spoke exactly those same words and
Yeah,
taught those very same principles. And I'm grateful that we can actually model what this can look like for others, so that it inspires other people to actually have these conversations in every space, not just in small isolated segments.
agreed. And when we think about, let's say, diversifying your friend circle,
Mm,
do you open your refrigerator and have the exact same thing in there? Just 800 bottles of ketchup? No. Do you open up a drawer and just have one of the same t-shirt? No.
mm,
So why not diversify your life with people the way that you do in every other aspect of your life?
yes.
Wouldn't make it just that much more interesting, you know? I don't think we take away from another person when we ask them about their life and
Mhm.
their experiences here on earth, as a certain culture. We learn from it. So
Right.
again, I feel on a spiritual level, if our goal is about love, it's about understanding, compassion, and empathy.
Mm,
If you put those shoes on every morning, I think things would be a lot more tolerable, right? We have bad days, no one's perfect.
yes.
But underneath it all, we all have some of the same basic needs: to be loved, to experience family. You know what I mean? To feed ourselves. And so when we get into these mechanisms of division,
Hmm.
you against me, my faith is right, yours is not, my skin is better, yours is not, it
Hmm.
is almost like a competition of 3-year-olds. It's very petty, it sounds
Yeah.
silly, there's no end goal, there's no prize, right?
Hmm.
So what a waste of energy, what a waste of money, what a waste of war, what a waste of power. When at the end of the day, if we drop into any cultural society, we start with the same basic needs:
Mm,
survival, love, wanting to feel loved, you know? And so those things transcend and they don't have ego. And it allows you to operate in a space where you can build relationships should you choose to open your heart.
mm,
And in my experience, that's been real currency. It's been a very good currency because that's how you grow, you
yes.
know?
Mm.
So,
I think that's beautiful what you said, and I agree. It's actually an amazing way to start the show, is to give such a beautiful takeaway,
mm,
um, for all of us who are listening to reflect how diverse is our social circle.
hmm
So something for us all to think about. And if you see too much of the same,
hmm
then you need to change it up.
yes,
That's what Sangat is. That's what Sangat is, like a gathering of consciousness.
hmm
And this is Sangat, what we're doing. We're having a conversation consciously, intentionally, to learn about each other and about each other's experiences. Having that exchange is so powerful.
yeah.
And I think that this needs to be encouraged for us to learn and to grow. And that is the right currency to be investing in.
hmm And now is a wonderful time as we see things shifting in the world
Hmm.
as it relates to social justice,
Mm,
especially for minorities, people of African descent, here African Americans. And so now at the forefront are those tough conversations.
Mm.
And it's the perfect time to ask. And if you don't know how to ask or are afraid to offend someone, or if you think you're going to make someone upset with how you ask, you just simply start by saying, I'm curious. I would like to understand.
Mm.
Again, lead with that compassion question. Who
Yeah.
could be upset about that?
Yes.
We don't know what we don't know. So it's really about how we ask,
Yes.
you know?
I think that's really important. In fact, my brother was sharing with me today. He's an engineer, so he has to go out and visit people's homes.
Mhm.
Um, and today, he's probably going to be watching and saying, "Why did you share this?" um, but he he was met with that today in three different cases,
Okay.
um, of people who were possibly curious,
Mhm.
but their way to ask the question was quite offensive.
Mm.
So I think that's important, is knowing how to express your curiosity in a way that is not upsetting for the person that you're asking.
Absolutely. And maybe it's checking if there's bias in how you're asking,
Hmm.
because sometimes people are prejudiced and don't even realize that they are.
Mm.
So the approach is incorrect, right? It comes off harsh. They don't know how to word it because it was led by some, let's say, yuck, right? Like a yuck sticky valence.
Mm.
You have to stop and ask, what lens am I seeing this before I ask the question about it? So,
Mm.
for example, you could have a woman who you just meet and, say she may be a Black woman and we know that she may be divorced. And it may be someone from another culture who'll look at her and say, well, who's your baby's dad? You go,
Mm.
excuse me? Because in their mind, they've seen media that or reports that, oh, well, these women are typically unwed. So you have to stop and say, wait, from what point am I asking this question?
Mm.
Because there's that's not true. It's assumption made for a whole, right? And that's not the correct way in which to do things. So
Absolutely.
yeah, a lot of people fail in just that point of not recognizing where they may have prejudices before they engage.
Absolutely. And definitely important to have those sensitivities, to know how to have the conversation,
Yes.
so that we can actually grow and come together. I
Mhm.
want to ask you how you are, and also how you're feeling, because you're in the US and I'm in London.
Yes.
Um, the current climate of race relations
Yes.
currently in America, how are you feeling about that?
So right now, I feel like I'm standing in a place of calm and empowerment. But the subject of race relations in America has been discussed and needed to hit this tipping point. It
Okay.
took the unfortunate death of George Floyd that,
Mm.
you know, the world witnessed, a man who was handcuffed, unarmed, being killed, you know, uh, in front while being filmed, while the world watched. And time stopped. We held our breath as we witnessed it.
Mm.
Was this the first time this has ever happened to an innocent Black man in America? No. It's happened many, 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 many times throughout generation. Different tools. It may not have been a knee. It could have been a lynching. But the difference was we were home due to COVID. People were not out at work. They weren't at school.
Mm.
We were home. And as someone filmed it, the world watched. And
Yeah.
it was the tipping point where now everyone saw what the African American community had been complaining about with our law enforcement. Law officers are supposed to protect you. When
Yes.
children see police officers, they go, oh, they run and feel safe. Talk to us. We learned about you on career day. But unfortunately, in the Black community, it doesn't always mean a happy ending. It doesn't always mean when you get pulled over, you're not going to start having anxiety because
Mm.
someone has decided that they didn't like you based on the color of your skin. or that they judged your entire culture based on the color of their skin. So, this tipping point has now opened the conversations. We noticed that when people went out to peacefully protest, you had white, black, Asian, Indian, Latin, Latinas. Everyone was there to support because they saw what we had been trying to communicate. And so my culture, my people, we mourned. We mourned because this grown man, as he was losing his breath while it was being filmed, and the officer knew he was being filmed, he called out for his mother, who was deceased, right? So it's almost calling to that ancestor, like, I'm headed that way.
Mm.
When he called out to his mother as an African American woman and mother, I felt all mothers heard him.
Mm.
All of our hearts said, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa. You know, we just, it was a war cry.
Mm-hmm.
And there were 4 men who sat on this man for 8 minutes until his breath of life was removed. Heartbreaking. We were shocked. Um,
Mm.
I was shocked because of the generation and time. I mean, these are things I would not have, wish I did not have to talk about to my child, you know, or to worry about for my brothers and my nephews who are Black men in America.
Mm-hmm.
But when we see that, we know that they're a group of people who are capable of doing certain things. Okay, so that conversation needed to happen, you know, and it goes back further than that, where we really kind of have to peg what narrative is being told by whom. You know, if I go back throughout history and I say, well, what is the history of African Americans creating a genocide upon a culture or racial group? There's not one.
Mm.
When I think back to even my ancestors, let's say Africans, creating a genocide among, you know, a massive group, not talking civil war, right, of their own in present day. In history, we haven't read this in our books, in our history books at least. Okay.
Mm.
So when the story is told from a perspective of I need to look good, we know that there's some lies that haven't been told. And eventually you're going to vomit. If you keep pushing stuff down and pushing stuff down, you're going to say enough, right? And when
Exactly.
you know, and again, the same people who wrote the history books, when we go, okay, well, what genocides and massacres have you done? And I look to Native American culture.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they're not even necessarily all present and vocal to even communicate what was done to their people, right? So it really becomes an interesting way that people are seeking truth
Mm.
and people are going to do their own research and understanding of what is the history of Africans in America,
Mm-hmm.
starting back to slavery. Um, what is that discrimination about you being inferior, us being superior?
Mm.
And that legacy is starts from how we got to America. See, a lot of Americans who are here and enjoying the opportunities that come with this amazing place can forget if it did not happen to their people or ancestors. Africans did not come to America by way of a cruise ship. We did not come with identification and passports. We
Mm-hmm.
did not come sitting comfortably on an airplane here in search of a better life.
Mm-hmm.
We were on the west coast of Africa with our families, farming, being mothers, you know, being spiritual leaders, working. And the only way I can call this is a mass kidnapping occurred, right? They
Wow.
call it the
Call it
slave
out the
trade.
truth. To call it out, that's the truth.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you say slave trade, there's a sense of dehumanizing the fact that these are people.
Hmm.
I'm going to give you an example. If I were a Caucasian girl, 7 years old, walking to school, and a van drove past me and kidnapped me and put me in a van and took off, and later my parents found me, they would say I'm a survivor of kidnapping.
Hmm.
If those same men took me and sold me to other men for sex, they would say I'm a survivor of sex trafficking.
Hmm.
12 million Africans were kidnapped and brought to America, and they referred to them as slaves. These were human beings. Okay? See the difference in just the description.
Yeah.
So it sets the tone when
Mm.
people aren't human.
Oh, Maisha, what you just said is so deep, like
Mhm.
so deep.
So it goes further, once we were here, and think about that for a moment. There may be hundreds of thousands of children missing right now in America.
Hmm.
12.5 million Africans were kidnapped from Africa,
From their home.
from their home, shackled, put in the bellies of these ships during those times, and only the strongest survived to get here. Okay?
Hmm.
And then what you can only imagine is the atrocities that happened. You take us from a warm climate into the south of America. You shackle and separate families. You sell them on selling blocks. You breed them like we were animals.
Hmm.
You remove the husbands. You rape the women. You make the children work. And for free for 400 years.
Hmm.
At what point were the survivors of this with each generation not going to say enough? We've given you everything we have. It's time to acknowledge us. We built this place. Okay? So much of our history we helped. The same way Native Americans helped them navigate when they came to the US. They taught them about the land. They shared their food. They
Yeah.
showed them how to survive. And what did they get in exchange?
Betrayal.
Gentle betrayal. We are spiritual people first.
Yeah.
The same with Native Americans.
Hmm.
We do not have a history of going into other countries and causing genocide.
Right.
So we have to be sensitive to the narrative. You look at what is birthed through those pains, whether it's our music, blues, jazz, hip hop,
Hmm.
you name it, we created it. You know, um, Even down to the US Constitution, where we were not even acknowledged as human beings for a while. They called us three-fifth a person. Have you ever seen three-fifth a person? Is that just the neck up? Is it the shoulders down? Is it just the waist?
Say. Okay. What? I'm just as what?
In the US Constitution, Black people, African Americans, were only considered three-fifths
Of a person.
of a person, meaning we had no voting rights. We were not a whole person.
Wow.
Which makes me think, were we whole people when our grandmothers breastfed your children as your nannies?
Mm.
When we tilled your land? When we built up America? So again, you got to kind of stop and go, what is going on? And you keep prevailing. My people keep going, they keep going, and they keep going.
Mm.
So again, what we see today in race relations with America is hypocrisy.
Hmm.
And everyone who now can see it, I think people are more having a spiritual awakening. They said enough. And so this was long overdue. And now they're asking for our stories. They want to know about our cultures. They're saying, tell us about Black owned businesses and what books can we read? And we go, about time. We've been here.
Mm.
But where there is guilt and fear, you don't always want to have the discussion.
Right.
So I don't know. I say, if it's difficult for people to talk about it, imagine having to live it,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, some of the things that you've talked about, I've had these conversations with Black friends of mine.
Mm-hmm.
So I see the overlaps in terms of what colonization did to particular parts of the world,
Yeah.
Africa being one, India being another. And there are some similarities, but for 12 million people to be kidnapped from their homeland, which is rich and flourishing and thriving, and there's no poverty, there's no hunger, there's no disease. Yet this all emerges later once 12 million people have been kidnapped
Yes.
and
And
then labeled as not being human.
yeah, and don't forget the natural resources found in Africa. We're
Yes.
talking diamonds,
Mm-hmm.
gold,
Mm-hmm.
oil.
Yeah.
I mean, we can go on for days as we now look at certain groups who are there mining
Mm-hmm.
while Africans can't even, afford to profit from it. You see other cultures there who are once again making a profit
Hmm.
of someone else's land and not giving back to the people.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, I mean, there's truth in everything that you're saying, and there's no doubt about that. There's a lot of pain that comes up as well. Like as you're talking, I'm feeling the pain within me because
Mhm.
for this to happen from one human to another is not okay.
Yeah.
Um, And when we use color as a way to create prejudice
Yeah.
and oppress others,
Yeah.
that's also not okay. Um, but any type of oppression is still oppression. Any type of a wrongdoing is still a wrongdoing. And it's
Yeah.
hard to think about how do we find a way to make a shift? Like is a shift possible?
A shift is possible when you undo the systematic racism that's in place. So after slavery, there were still hurdles that were set in place to keep a certain group down. Okay? So let's talk, for example, you have the best schools. Let's start with just grade school. And you put them in a community where the homes around there are a certain amount of money. And so only that group who has that amount of money have access to the great education. For those less fortunate, you don't have it. So you're going to put them in an area. So see where there's systems in place. So that group has only access to less of the best. They don't have the health care because all the top doctors are going there. It's about money at that point. Things were still put in place to keep people 400 yards from each other, 400 miles from the race and say, go. So it still is not even as systems are put into place from our prison systems, the disparity of brown and black people in US prisons because of the amount of money being made by these institutions. That was intended.
This was completely shocking to me. Just a couple of weeks ago, a beautiful sister that I had on, Michelle Sahin, she
Mhm.
shared with me that prisons are a for-profit system in the US, and
Yes,
that is volatile, that is disgusting, and I can't believe that.
it's slavery remasked, reinvented,
Yeah.
dropped into this millennium. It's free labor once again. And mind you, the penalties for the crimes are never the same. You may have a white man who is on cocaine who gets arrested. They send him to rehab. They may find a little baggie of cocaine on, and they send him to rehab. That same black man may get 5 years in prison.
Yeah.
It is such an interesting perspective to have different guard stations in place to make sure that things are not on the up and up. Banks not allowing loans to families who just want to buy a home may say, you qualify for $750, but this couple right here is going to get 200,000 because of preferential treatment, because they had access to those institutions that they thought looked better on paper, meaning you present yourself different.
Right.
It is exhausting to be Black in America. There is a video of a woman who's a professor, and I can't think of her name, and she's an amazing white woman who is lecturing in a hall. And she looks out to her students and she says, how many of you right now at this point in time would trade places with a Black person? Raise your hand. Not one.
Mm-hmm.
Subconsciously, then that's telling you that someone knows somehow I may not be Black, but I know I don't want to be that.
Yeah, that's Jane Elliott.
Jane Elliott, thank you.
She's incredible. And I read this too. I actually saw the video. So she's in a room full of white people
Mm-hmm.
and she asks them to stand up if they
Mm-hmm.
want to be treated the same way as Black people in society. And
Yes,
nobody stands up. And then she repeats, she said, I don't think you understood me.
right.
I want you to stand up if you want to be treated the way that Black people are being treated out there. And again, nobody stood up. And she said, so you're telling me that everybody in this person now, none of you can deny that you are aware of what is happening to Black people out there because none of you want to be them.
Yes,
Anybody who denies racism or denies the way that Black people are treated, that calls you out straight away. If you
yeah,
don't want to be treated that way, it means you're aware of it. You know it.
yes. And then with that awareness comes responsibility,
Mm,
right? So now that you know, you have to gauge yourself. Have you ever done anything about it? Have you ever said anything? Have you ever helped someone who you know may have been Black? Because you already know that they're not treated fairly.
mhm.
Why not pull them closer? Why not get to know? Why not ask? If you know for 1,000% there's no way in hell you would switch places, what's the problem? Why can't you ask? Why wouldn't you offer? Why wouldn't you sit and just wouldn't you want that? And again, maybe I operate differently. If I saw a child fall in the street, I'm going to run and help that child. I'm not going to gauge first what race and culture and their beliefs are, what their sexuality is. It's someone's child. That's all I
Absolutely.
know. So again, it's with the same empathy and mindset that I
Right.
really want people to start looking at other human beings.
I think that there's a lot that we've been brainwashed through what media perpetuates in messaging.
Yes.
And I know that the Sikh community is aware of this because we've been labeled as militants and terrorists.
Right.
Whereas we are a very, what do I say? We are a warrior clan, but we are also a very peaceful people. That is the embodiment. We're trained to be warrior saints. And
Yes.
those are the ethics of being a Sikh.
Yeah.
But for political agendas and advancement of other communities, Sikhs have been painted in this way. And a lot of people are not willing to learn about our story because they've already accepted that label. And it's the same for Black people. For
Yeah.
having been criminalized through the media, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of a lot of community and a lot of people listening here and in other spaces, they've already got a preconceived notion and
Yeah.
they feel that, oh, the law is there to provide justice. Therefore, if somebody's been arrested, in my head, 1 and 1 equals 1. They can't fathom that there could be an unequal equation or an imbalance to that situation where injustices take place through those very same legal systems.
Yeah.
Um, and therefore, they've disassociated and there's a lack of empathy or a lack of understanding. So they're like, oh, well, this is your problem.
Yes.
Deal with it. I don't want to get my hands dirty for your problem.
That's correct. But it's one of those things that if we strip down the just basic necessities,
Mm-hmm.
if you have a community of people and imagine it's your people, no matter what your racial background is, and you build this community, don't you need a grocery store that maybe has fruits and vegetables and the basics so that you and your family can eat healthy, right?
Yes, you do.
Do you
Mm-hmm.
understand? And still, certain communities and neighborhoods in major cities here in the US, they don't even have um, the basic necessities of just a nice grocery store in which to eat to survive. So we're talking survival, all right? And then we talk about the hospitals and access to just doctors and proper things. Well, it feels like it's tightening on you. How can you thrive when the basic necessities are not accessible to you? You have to get on buses and trains and go further out to try to compete for just some of the basic necessities in order to move forward. So
I don't think most people know this.
they don't. And it's one of those things, like you said, it's until it happens to your family, then they go, oh, I understand. Are you going to tell me right now, as a man, for men listening, if you are a father and you have a spouse and children, and your family is starving, and right now you don't have access to any single thing, you go out and you just ask people, can I just have a morsel? Can I just have something just to make sure my children do not sleep right now with their stomachs rumbling?
Mm.
And say you walk down the street and a man has a cart of groceries and he's sitting there thinking, do I take this knowing it goes against my moral code? But then there are 4 mouths at home to feed. Lord, forgive me. And he grabs a simple grapefruit just to be able to feed them each individual slice. Is he a demon?
Hmm.
Some things are circumstantial.
Yes.
It's like the same with women when you see in very poor, disenfranchised cultures.
Hmm.
You're quick to judge that woman who may not have had a skill set due to education not being allowed to her culture,
Yeah.
right? Happens. Where they say, no, women are to stay home and to do certain domestic things. Say,
Mm-hmm.
in the male of the house, say if he dies or pass away anyway, this woman may not have, and just the bareness, of being able to provide for herself, she uses what she has, for example, of her body in order to exchange just for money for food. Is she a demon for feeding? So again, things can be circumstantial, but
Yes.
we don't know until we have the conversation with, please tell me your story. It is very quick to judge.
Mm.
So we have change happening. The beautiful thing is, being African American in my generation, unlike my parents, I think this is the biggest generation of millionaires, billionaires that we've witnessed. And we have to learn now to take the emotion out of it,
Mm-hmm.
um, and learn how to fight smart.
Right.
And for me, and in my opinion, it's going to come from financial economics,
Mm-hmm.
having your own, building your own, teaching your children about it, entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
education,
Mm-hmm.
um, because no one can get in your own way if you are given space to cultivate that.
Yes.
So we are not looking for handouts. We are not looking for government, crutches to fall back on. All we're saying is get out the way.
Right.
There's an opportunity that is supposedly equal for everyone. Allow us all to run for it the moment that you hit that pistol and say go, and move out the way. Don't
Mm-hmm.
put any extra hurdles in our place so that we can finally experience equality.
Can I ask you
Mhm.
to share with us a small explanation of something? So, the sister I told you about, Michelle, she mentioned something called redlining, and I'm familiar with this, but I don't know if everybody who's listening is familiar with what redlining is because it currently only affects Black people,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, well, now in the US, not just Black people, you could say,
Oh,
oh, yeah, it could be Latin Americans.
oh,
Um, oh, gosh, yes. And believe it or not, there's actually tiers to the racism in America. Our history is the longest. Again, you would have Native Americans if the majority of them were not, you know, murdered in the mass genocide. You
hmm.
know, you find Native Americans living on reservations, isolated, a very small group. This was their land. They are the indigenous Americans. Okay?
Would you say that reservations are treated the same as the projects?
Yes. Yes. And what you will find in present day, and again, you just go back and read history on your own. Native Americans are spiritual
Yes.
beings. I'm talking of the earth, from the earth. I mean, the most spiritual and peaceful people, also warriors, as you should be,
Mm,
but they had a balance and they respect the elders and they respect family. And they had family values I think many cultures can relate to.
yeah.
When you find them in present day, due to the atrocities that have happened to their people, the lack of resources, you have alcoholism that is running rampant in their community. I mean, that's a sign of depression, right? That's a sign of escapism. Uh,
Disempowerment.
Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, also, because you have a lot of corporations who maybe in certain areas where the reservations are located, the women have been a high surge of sexual assaults against them. These are voices that are silent. And so,
Mm,
your show is about raising your voices and being heard. My heart hurts for that community first and foremost.
mm,
They were the first ones out the gate to know what a group of certain people were capable of.
mhm,
Second, the longest history in America would be with African Americans.
mhm,
Then you have an influx of Chinese Americans, who also came in during the gold rush, and Latin Americans, people from Mexico coming up, and you just start to see. I mean, even with our present day president Trump and his words against Mexicans,
it's
this
disgusting.
this was their land. This is North America. At one point, was part of the Mexican territory. Like, open up a map. This is history. These are facts. So
Mm,
when people go, well, that's not my problem, it actually is.
yes, it is.
You know,
Mm,
learn to think for yourself. When you see media portray a certain group as violent, they didn't get that way overnight. This
yes.
is a conditioning, a conditioning, a conditioning. If I took a child, locked them up in a cage, treated them a certain way, and 60 years later let them out, you're either going to have a monster on your hands who never forgot what
Mhm,
you did,
mhm,
or you'll have someone so beat down and docile that maybe they'll die. They'd rather just go on and do that escape, right?
mhm.
These things don't happen overnight. It,
I agree. I 100% agree with you. And
Mhm.
um, the reason that it's important for me to have this highlighted here is to show the unity of how we, as people of faith, because that's who we are. There's so many similarities in everything that you've just shared about Indigenous people, about Africans that resonate with Sikhs.
Yeah.
The land that was once ours in Punjab was taken from us.
Mm,
From riches, we went to rags.
right.
And we've been redlined in India, in
Yeah.
Punjab. And the people there that were of faith, that were of values and of culture, are now drowning in alcoholism, poverty, and taking their own lives.
Yes.
And it's important for us to highlight that this is a pattern of power.
Hmm.
People who are run by politics
Hmm.
don't see humanity, will act as animals.
Yeah.
And history is there to speak to the truth,
Yeah.
right? And when Sikhs look at things, we all look at our own little window, like what affects my people,
Yeah.
right? But this is why these conversations are so, so important to say, hang on a second, same thing's happening to you.
Hmm. That's it. So redlining is like about restricting. We're
Hmm.
going to restrict where people who are poor have access to, and
Mm,
we're going to restrict to the benefit of those who have where others can't come and enjoy.
hmm,
It's basically gates, right? Or fences that are put out
hmm.
to keep them out and to keep you safe and protected in,
To keep control.
to keep control.
Hmm.
Because the rich want to get richer, remain more comfortable, and they have a scarcity mindset.
Yes.
If you have and I have, then that means I can't have what I need. I'm not my spirituality.
Right.
God creates an abundance.
Hmm.
My God did not make one morsel of sand,
Hmm.
one drop of water in the ocean.
Mm.
No, not the God I know,
Hmm.
not one human being. There are
There's enough
billions
for
of people.
everybody.
There you go. There's no such thing. No such thing as scarcity in the world that God created. Now, with the destruction that man did, okay, maybe. Let's
Yes.
talk from there, but we have to have some ownership, right?
Mm.
And our part in the destruction and what we add to it. Are we speaking life into it? Do we speak death into it? What are our actions to support that? Come
Mm.
on. So we all have a part to play in that.
And what is that part?
that part is to treat others the way you really want to be treated. And I mean that with the assumption that you are healthy mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
Mm.
Someone who doesn't love themselves is not going to have that capability. I think that's when self care is important. Checking in with yourself, and how would I want someone to handle me in this situation, in this exchange?
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, like we said, we're spiritual beings having a human experience,
Yes.
right? We dropped into certain bodies. But as I sit here and look at you today, we are the same complexion.
Mhm.
So is black just a word? I've been to India. There were people darker than me.
Yeah.
They're not black. So
Mhm.
is it just a word? Right?
Mhm.
We have to look at that. It's
Yes.
it's the person and the experience and the journey underneath, the color of a skin, the same way your t-shirt is the color that matters. What's happening with the soul, the
Mm.
person behind?
Yes.
So
Thank you, Maisha. I'm so grateful for this exchange because
mm,
it's time for us to stand together. It's time for us to unite as humans.
mhm.
And when we break it all down, we are all the same. We've
Yes,
got faith. We've got something that is bigger than us that drives us into greatness and goodness, despite the oppression, despite the atrocities and the injustices, right?
mhm. Yeah,
And it's not that there's anything unreasonable being asked for. We're asking to be seen.
yes,
And right now, the world needs to see that Black Lives Matter
yeah,
because they are most at risk in this current climate. And it's for us as brown people and all different colors and hues of people to stand together because this is as much my fight as it is your fight.
yes. And I'm going to explain Black Lives Matters
Mm.
as told to me by my 12-year-old daughter.
Hmm.
And it's out the mouth of babes that we get purity and honesty with a very clean heart, right? She said, Mom, this is the way in which I see it. It's like a classroom of children have been told to go outside to play for recess. And she says when they are called back inside the classroom, the teacher sits and has everyone go and sit back at their desk. And there's a little boy who hurt his knee while he was out. And he decided not to tell the teacher. He says, it'll be okay. I'm just going to kind of sit and deal with it. It's not too bad. I can handle it. So the next day, she tells the class, go on out again. It's recess time and enjoy yourself. And he runs out again, but this time he falls and busts open his knee and it's bleeding profusely. And he comes back into the classroom and he says, I'm not doing okay. I'm hurting. I'm in pain. And the teacher goes, okay, well, I'm going to go get a band aid for everyone. But he would say, no, everyone is not in need of a band aid. I
Mm.
am. I'm the one who's hurting.
Hmm.
That is the analogy to Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
We all know that everyone matters,
Mm.
but it's the ones who are hurting right now,
Yeah.
who are bleeding,
Hmm.
that we're asking humanity to look after, right?
Yes.
So it was from her words I said that is a beautiful way to look at it. And I
It's a
know in her
beautiful way to look at it.
and I know in her heart there is no prejudice. We didn't teach her this,
Hmm.
She doesn't know. Those things are taught. They're taught at home. Mhm.
And it's very simple. And that's how simple it should be for all of us to see that, of course, all lives matter,
Mhm.
but all lives are not being threatened and at risk right now.
Correct.
If we can stand together, then
Mhm.
we've got hope to actually live in that space of uniting the whole human race as one, which is
Mhm.
the teaching of the 10th Sikh Guru, the 10th master of the Sikhs. He
Mhm.
teaches us to see the whole world as one.
Mhm.
Manas ki jaat sabe eke pehchanbo. That's what it means.
Mm.
So with our eyes, there is no difference. We are all the same.
Yes, that's right. Because at any time, the targeted group can change. And we've seen that happen with 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
The words and the negative media that surrounded our brothers and sisters from the Middle East, it was
Mm-hmm.
an atrocity.
Yeah.
You know, and if you've ever experienced oppression, you find it repulsive
Yeah.
to find another target group. I
Mm-hmm.
don't care if it's about your sexuality. I don't care if it's about your spirituality
Mm-hmm.
or the color of your skin.
Right.
Once you have been oppressed, how we're we're not rooting for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, oh, new day, new target is how we see it, unfortunately.
Mm.
You know, but again,
Mm-hmm.
there's a fear of power that
There
comes
is.
from the oppressor.
But then how do we, as the minority, how do we fit in to those spaces where we make the minority and they are the majority?
You know, the irony is that I feel that people of color globally are actually the majority. If you really start from that truth, right?
We don't see it that way though, because the people who sit in the seats of power, they feel like the majority because their voices are louder and people listen to them and they're able to bring action, whereas we get silenced or we just remain yelling and they'll lower the volume and that's it.
Agreed. But what's one way to speak volumes without necessarily using your voice and making an impact? Stop spending your dollars with them, stop spending your euros.
Mm,
Decide collectively as racial groups to just sit and only do business with each other and watch them listen. Do you understand Black women alone in America spend billions of dollars? Black women. If they said, you know what, I'm not spending another dollar at these corporations that we don't own, you better believe Nike and Lululemon and Adidas and all these companies would come running. So you
mm,
hit them where it matters because we do matter.
yes.
Again, look at who's telling the narrative.
Mm,
So the biggest fear is that we realize our power, we use it financially. Because what, again, history tells you what is the biggest priority for oppressors? It's about money,
mm-hmm.
right? It's about power
Mm,
and control by way of money. It's greed. It's always greed.
I like this. This is an incredible suggestion. And
Hmm.
I don't even think it should be a suggestion. This should be compulsory for all of us. That
Yes.
if we want to make a difference, if we want our voices to be heard, then only spend your money with companies, with small people, business owners that are run by ethnic minorities.
How about that? What if you only did business with people who look like you? Guess what you just did? You put food on that mother's table.
Hmm.
You helped that farmer keep his farm open who was feeding a whole town.
Hmm.
You open it up and it's community based. And guess what? Everyone's winning. So you're creating opportunities of win win, which to me is God's way.
Yes. To look after each other.
Yes, you love thy neighbor as you would yourself, right?
Hmm.
Think about that. And these little suggestions or comments we're making should be common sense, but common sense ain't common. Right?
Common sense is not common.
No,
Absolutely.
you want to start eradicating, you know, lack of food in the US, start planting fruit trees along the street. So at least our homeless can at least start there, right? I mean, it's that simple. It's a seed. I'm
Fruit
growing.
trees on the streets. Yes. In your front gardens, put fruit trees. Let people come and take the fruit.
Yeah. And listen, it's not something expensive. I could cut open a papaya now, take all the seeds out, plant them somewhere, go and water them, and you would have that fruit growing right there. Cucumbers. We're seeing it now with COVID. My daughter and I just decided to do an inside garden. And I'm growing vegetables from, inside of our flat, and I'm tickled by it. And I go, it's that from little seeds come my organic garden that
Mm,
normally I'd be spending $50 at Whole Foods for. So really, come on, humans, if we wanted to do for others, we could start with the basics.
yes.
You know, you
Yeah.
have third world countries who, I mean, look, let's even look at Cuba. We're talking a communist little island, but they have better health care for their people than we have in America. One
Mm,
of the wealthiest at one point, the powerhouse. and had horrible health care. Because again, pharmaceutical companies, big business, you
Mm,
follow the dollars, you follow where the money goes, and you see what is their goal and who
mm,
benefits, which means who's losing.
mm.
And that's the real war. This is
And
not
that's the
about
way
race.
it is.
Yeah,
Mm.
this is not about race. It's about greed and others not having the ability to have, right?
Absolutely right. I mean, you said it beautifully, absolutely beautifully. It's the small things, those tiny little seeds that will give birth to life nourishing fruit and plants and vegetables, right? And if
Yeah.
you start even with that, those two small steps to plant fruit trees, fruit plants in your garden, in your front garden, put a little sign saying, please help yourself,
Yeah.
right? That's going to help. And when we're only supporting small ethnic minority businesses,
Mm-hmm.
it will change. It will definitely change things up.
Mm-hmm. You could put fruit trees along the major streets that head to subway stations.
Mm-hmm.
Let the fruit fall. It didn't cost anybody anything. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't take away from anything. The fruit did what they were supposed to do, which was grow and prosper. Again, these are God's laws. It's when man comes in and shakes it up.
Things
that-
get mixed up.
yeah, we hurt ourselves.
So I want to switch to learn more about United We Slay.
Mm,
I want to know that why in your journey you felt that amongst all the other battles you're fighting, that this is something that needs to be brought to the light, to the front line for us to join forces with and understand. So can you tell us more about United We Slay?
sure. So United We Slay was created. It was birthed out of two different purposes. The first started just within my own social circle.
Mm,
I've been alive now for 4 decades, and I look at my social circle, who I always call just my family, and I've met women from all different ethnic, cultural backgrounds who are just amazing. And I would, you know, ask other people, "Have you heard of so and so and what they're doing?" They go, "No." I go, "Oh my goodness, her story needs to be told." And so again, just looking at the diversity, I noticed an imbalance. How come I am not hearing about my wonderful friend who is, Indian American, who just created a meditation superhero toy, the first in history? How come I'm not hearing about this on American news?
mhm,
Or what about that African American woman who was kidnapped, sex trafficked, and then escaped only to save 1,500 women and children of any ethnicity in America? How come I didn't hear about her? And
mm,
so I said, wait a minute. There are so many amazing women I'm coming across who are heroes, inspiration, impact changers, and their stories are not going to be told because they do not look like what the majority, and I say that laughingly,
mhm,
want them to look like.
mm,
So I said, no, we're going to hear the untold narratives of these women I come in contact with every day.
mhm,
Secondly, I gave birth to a daughter, and she is an incredible, curious young lady. And I wanted her to know and see people that look like her and her mom's friends
mhm,
who are doing amazing things in this world.
mhm,
It was not something I could turn the television on and be fed. So we started with the radio show. Now I am in development for a docu-series where we're going to see women from every ethnic background throughout history who we have not heard about.
mm,
Because what that does to that young girl, like yourself, right, at one point, or audience members, as a child, you sit there and go, she looks like me. Do
mm.
you mean to tell me I can be a prime minister?
Right.
Yes, right? We believe that which we see first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, you mean I can be a physicist? You mean I can work at NASA? You mean I could be a DJ? I
Mm.
can be a skateboarder? I can be a snowboarder? And they have a curly afro like me, hair like me. Mom, they pray like me. They're Muslim like me.
Mm.
Come on, if that's not powerful.
I
I-
would have loved to have seen that when I was a kid, to have seen
Right.
women wearing turbans who look like
Yes.
me on the screen, that would have
Yes.
been amazing.
Yes. So imagine, right? And you've already done well for yourself and just spiritually and taking care of yourself and still pushing through although you were not represented in media.
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
imagine now is the time because my daughter's generation has an opportunity to grow up and not be wounded adults,
Yes.
right?
Mm.
Based on not being seen and invalidated and not honored and not respected
Mm.
because we were quote unquote different,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So it was birthed out of those two necessities.
I love that. And in your opinion, how do you see the lack of this diversity? Like, what impact does it have on women of color?
It makes us think we can't do something. It's almost like a bad joke. It's almost a mental, and I don't want to use the F word. It's a mind F. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Uh-huh.
So can I say, like, think of this. Remember we talked about God having an abundance, right? Everything He
Mhm.
created, she, He, whatever. I believe God is He. At one point, if someone said, Maisha, name a black supermodel,
Mm.
I could only give you one.
Mm-hmm.
Naomi Campbell. Well, okay. Name white supermodels. I could go on for days. Doesn't make sense. Maisha, name a black president in the United States. Barack Obama. Name a white one. How
Mm-hmm.
come you get one, and we're talking about out of a billion people on the planet,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That does something to you. That's not, that tells me I've got a one in a gazillion chance of being what my soul is begging to manifest as
Mm.
on this planet. That something's off with those numbers.
Absolutely.
The game sounds rigged,
Yeah.
right?
Systems rigged.
The system's rigged.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there should never be one of one.
Mm-hmm.
Let's open up the opportunities in that,
But
right?
this is what diversity hires are, right? It's that token one person that, okay, checked off my diversity hires for this quarter,
And
right?
right. And so when you talk about diversity, even in the corporate setting, even that's a joke because we know people who have culture. You now have dual culture. You have to speak two languages. You have to speak corporate, for example, in America, corporate American language, where my Ivy League kicks in, the tone of my voice, the tonation. I am here, I'm just as bright, and I'm better than you. Has
Uh-huh.
to kick in so that nobody feels threatened. I have to play the American corporate game.
Mm.
And then I take that hat off when I get home and I'm sitting with my mother and my brothers and my nephews, and I just want to be a Black woman and understand my culture without having to explain myself or someone touch my hair like a chia pet as if it grows out any differently.
Mm.
I have to have two identities.
Mm.
Still win.
Mm.
Where I read somewhere in London, there was a law in place where children of African descent or mixed could not wear their hair the way in which it naturally grows. God doesn't make mistakes. My hair does not grow from the root
Mm.
straight. It is as curly and kinky intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
How dare you tell me that I have to straighten, press, and pull it back and braid it and make myself presentable just to make money in your game for your financial gain?
Mm.
Give me
So
a break.
a few things that I read in my research that I've
Mhm.
done. So looking into seat music therapy, this was a huge part of it. That what was the impact of the historical events and specifically colonization?
Yeah.
Um, And one of the things that really stuck out in my head is their perception of us. And what is written in these books of history, these are not my words, these are the words from those books of history, is that the white man was civilized and the people of color, the indigenous people, the African people, were savages.
Right.
And when we take somebody's faith away from them, we are still treating them that same way.
Correct.
To say that I am civilized, I know what presentable looks like, and you do not meet that criteria, therefore you have to conform to my description of presentability, although that defies your natural makeup created by God.
There you go.
And that's still another layer of oppression that we're still engaging with out there.
It is, and I'm going to give you a specific example of that, and its hypocrisy. In West African culture, you have a religion that's referred to as Yoruba, and they're very much present a hierarchy of a god and demigods. Okay, do you know during the slave trade they still held on to this religious basis, and they were able to hide the names behind Catholic saints. Same people. So, right. So let's take Our Lady of Guadalupe would be known as Ochun in Yoruba tradition. So the Catholics had the exact same hierarchy, had saints who you call on for certain things, and yet African people had the exact same thing. They were not called saints, they were called deities. Different language. You saying red in Spanish, rojo, and in French, rouge, doesn't mean I'm savage. We're saying the same thing. But Catholicism is not looked down upon. Catholicism, right, is global and is acceptable and it's considered sanctified. You have people who have the exact same structure in place, the exact same rituals happening, because rituals happen in Catholicism. You see them coming down the aisle with the incense and almost speaking in tongues. And which book do you want to pick from as far as sacrifices being done? So what makes that savage and yours not? The narrator, right?
Absolutely.
Hypocrisy. They had a God. We have our God. You have your God. You have names of demigods in some culture. We always have had spirituality. Name one community, a country with culture that do not have their own spiritual beings. I tell you, there may be some who don't, but as far as people of color, I know of Lakshmi and Narayan. You know, everyone has their saints in place or people of higher, ancestors that crossed over that we gave name, except for some. And those are the ones I'm finding to be the oppressor. Where's the spirituality in this? It comes down to spirituality. We were not savage. We knew how to manifest, work with the land and what God gave us. We had natural herbs to heal. We could feed the sick without your corporate hospitals. Right? We could make hair grow and, wombs fertile and bring the rain down because of our faith in God. That's spirituality.
Absolutely. I mean, everything you said applies to India as well, right?
Yes.
It's the same type of people, same type of land, different ways to speak to that spirituality, but essentially the same language. It comes from the heart and goes straight to God.
Yes. And the beauty, I mean, I witnessed in India, I was there with an organization called Brahmana Kumaris, and all the dadis, these 90-year-old women who were so wise, who you would think God was whispering in their ears because they were so intuitive and were able to just share wisdom that could transcend anyone's background. And the way these women looked, they looked better than 30-year-old women. And it started with the spirituality that sat within them. You
Yeah.
know, and I said, wow, we don't have elders made up of women in the US leading our churches.
Mm.
Another group that's forgotten, women.
Yes. Yes.
Women throughout history.
Mm-hmm.
It's time everyone gets a chance to be acknowledged,
Absolutely.
you
And
know?
I think we have to find the way to come forward and step into those spaces. And um, one of the things that I was looking at when I was learning about United We Slay is you say dare to be different.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. That resonates with me. But can you share for our listeners what that means to you?
Yes, it means you don't have to conform. I think that God talks to each individual individually. So, who am I to tell you how to express yourself where you just may be that next liberator? You may be that next prime minister. You
Mhm.
just may be that next astronaut. You came here to share your truth the way that it was whispered to your soul that wakes you up every morning and drives you,
Mhm.
and you living in purpose and living in service, right? So
Yes.
it speaks to me in that way. You are supposed to do this. This is the way you're so be different. Don't conform.
Be
Because
you.
because it doesn't conforming doesn't mean it's the right way. It may not be the way that that seed was planted in you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you talk about women's empowerment.
Mhm.
And I know that sometimes this phrase can be met with opposition just because of a lack of understanding.
Yeah.
I've been asked that, does women's empowerment mean the disempowerment of men?
Oh
So,
gosh, no. Again, because I'm for something doesn't mean I'm against something. So I want to start there. If no, so again, no, no, no. Pro something, and again, empowerment doesn't have pro in it. It's power. So it means in the foundation to give strength to.
mm,
So again, for a group, we'll call the female group. It could be the transgender group if you relate as a woman. The group that has not had a chance to be on the world stage and receive the accolades and just attention that they deserve, we have food for you. And this food is called empowerment. It's elements, information, aids, and tools to help you become your best self. That is empowerment.
mm,
And you can come and eat from it in any way that you see fit that speaks to your soul at that time.
mhm.
That's the intention behind women empowerment. It's support. It's we're here when you need us. This may help you. Yeah.
Okay, and what's your definition of multicultural badass women?
Wow. So multicultural. I look at even just my own personal lineage, right? My existence in this world manifested in the blood in my DNA. Uh, I did the DNA test to find out exactly, certain things we knew by word of mouth in our family of our ancestry, but many of us could not document it because we were sold and mixed. But I knew West African, Nigerian to be specific. I knew Irish, probably hence the green eyes, the red hair, um, as well as some British and Native American, Iroquois from upstate New York. So I have many cultures. I am not just one homogeneous by way of West Africa today, right?
Mm,
So I think in terms of what America was originally created for, was called the melting pot before we had people in power who said this is not about diversity. When has America not been about diversity? It was a melting pot. So when I say multicultural, I may decide in my spirituality to adopt a different faith that didn't originate in the United States. I may decide at some point in my life, how I identify myself and sexual. So multicultural meaning everyone unique, different mixture, non-homogeneous, right?
mm,
Non-homogeneous. And so that is the multicultural aspect. Badass means that you showed up and made impact from where you are in your community. Doesn't have to be televised, doesn't have to be on Instagram. You just showed up. And
Mhm.
whether that was reading with someone else's child, feeding your neighbor,
Yep.
you made impact. Did you change someone's life for the better that day? In my book, you're a badass. In a society where we are now putting people on pedestals for doing nothing,
Yep.
I call them trickless magicians.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
now we're back to the basics. You know, what did you do to make someone else have a smile or make their life easier? You're badass. If it's not about you and you're operating from a place of service, you're badass.
Mm.
So that's the premise behind it.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And we all love stories. We all love examples to understand things in play. Do
Mhm.
you have a story that helped you to connect with your own empowerment?
The men and women in my family. And again, it goes to me saying women empowerment is not about being against men. In my home, the love and strength that my father poured in me since I was a little girl, he made me feel like a superhero.
Mm.
I stood on his shoulders. And then my grandmother, with her wisdom, who sat and I would sit at her feet and ask her about her life and what it was like to fall in love and tell me about what it was like for you in segregation, where you had to drink from water fountains that may have just been black only, but the water tastes the same as the white only. And
Mhm.
my mother, who was such a social activist, militant woman, you
Wow.
know, on the outside, you'd think, oh, this gentle, fair skin, but the inside, she was a beast. My bloodline, our community,
Mm.
the love, the fight, the passion, that is my personal inspiration and very makeup of it. You know, we were community driven, community service giving family, and that is so powerful because it's the coming together. You know, in Christianity, we were taught that if two or more come together in my name, I am present.
Mm.
I feel that in spirit. If we are here today, coming together in common purpose of sharing knowledge, wisdom, there is a strength, an energy
Mhm.
that you can feel. We can get things done. We can activate. We can create
Mhm.
change, right?
Absolutely, no doubt.
So that's the place that I operate from and was inspired by. And it
Mm.
was that village of people, good and bad, who
Mhm.
impacted my life. Yes, directly. And so here I am today. You just show up, and none of us are perfect. You just show up, you get the work done.
But that takes so much courage, and I
Mm.
appreciate you showing up for yourself and for us as well,
Oh,
to be in this new space and to share these experiences.
yeah. I it does me joy to see people who look like us.
Right?
It's the real world, right? It's the
Mhm.
real world, and when I see it now and I'm able to do my part in it and help create it, I think of us as 5-year-olds and go, "How tickled pink would we have been to see us as a Marvel character?"
Ah,
I've yet to see an Indian woman, and I know you guys are badass. I mean, I know my sister friends from the culture, you know?
yes.
And Asian American, and like and not even American. It transcends that, you know. And so yeah, it's like about time. Hello, Disney, make some more characters that look like the people in the world if we're gonna tell the stories.
Mhm. Absolutely. We're gonna have to have our own animations and our own Disneys, right?
Agreed. Agreed. More people need to demand it.
Yeah,
And nowadays, because we have our own media outlets where you can create your own show, nothing should stop you.
right.
Nothing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a lot of young women and all different ages of women listening to us. who might be wondering, like, when you're trying to be seen or trying to use your voice, sometimes the hardest step is that very first one.
Mm,
And it's always wonderful to take inspiration from other strong, successful women like yourself.
mm.
Can you share with us was there a turning point for you, and what was that for you to come in and claim your power?
Well, I think for me personally, I was comfortable speaking up, having had a background in theater and acting.
Hmm.
For me, acting was not about fame and wanting to be seen. It was a spiritual journey that started. In order for me to become another person, I have to ask Maisha to step aside and bring in the spirit of the character whose story I'm about to tell, which means I'm about to slip these shoes on if I'm doing this authentically. And there's an intuition that comes in it, it's a meditation that comes in it, it's a trust that comes in it between you and God to channel, be a vessel for this
Hmm.
person.
Mm.
So if I could do that with a writer's words, I learned after my career of acting that it was really about speaking from the heart.
Mm.
And my comfort in public speaking came from that place. There was a moment where I was teaching and consulting people, whether it's corporate people, the everyday man, teaching about public speaking as a teacher. And I tell people, when you speak from your heart, you cannot go wrong.
Mm.
You speak from here, there's no judgment on that,
Hmm. Yeah.
right?
Yes.
No one's going, oh, but you broke up that verb, or oh, you stuttered. When you speak from here, as we have seen many young souls at protest, age didn't matter. They got it across. We felt it. So it's really about the intention. What's the intention coming from here? Can't go wrong. So you don't have to worry about perfection when we have that apprehension.
Hmm.
If someone told you your voice doesn't matter and you believe them, I need you to know today that that lie was not about you. Someone told them that.
Mm.
And so they transferred that fear onto you. So guess what? Shake it off. It wasn't yours in the first place. You don't have to own it. And then say, what is it that I know?
Hmm.
Because everybody has some experience of something that they know. And if it's part of your story, it's even more special because no one's gonna tell you right or wrong. It's your story, which
Hmm.
means that's your journey. I don't know it. It's yours to have, not mine. So go on and say it. We're just gonna listen. We hold the space for you. So be fearless in that. Be fearless in that because it may be your particular words that unlock that one thing to someone else's purpose or heart or life.
Yes.
Man, like, talk about power, right?
Yes.
So,
It's so beautiful. Thank you.
oh, you're welcome.
I think you're just like sprinkling so much wisdom, and I'm reading through the comments as well, and everybody's really enjoying everything that you're saying and resonating. I'm so, so grateful.
Oh, thank you.
One of the last things I would like to ask you about is cultural appropriation
Mhm.
and mindfulness around it. I can't speak.
Yes. So, with our admiration for other cultures come responsibility, right? If we mean well. So, we say mindfulness, meaning be aware of, be in the present moment of what it is you're learning ab-
Hmm.
about the culture that you want to share with others, or what it is you're adopting from that culture. Why are you doing it? What is it about? And are you teaching from a place of authenticity? You know, i- Are you doing it from a place of service and healing? Do you have enough wisdom? Did someone who educated you about whatever it is, whether it's teaching, say, yoga, did you study from someone of that culture? Can we just start there?
This is
Right?
a big topic. I mean, this is one that kind of, you know, I've
Yeah.
had this conversation with friends as well, and it's for me hurtful to see that people have like in the Punjabi community have mixed feelings about yoga.
Yeah.
I see it as a tool to be helpful, to help us tap in with our bodies, our synchronicity and our communication. And actually, the music that I teach comes under Nad Yoga, if you've ever heard that. It's known as the art of communication, knowing how to express. And it's skills that you need to learn that require deep mastery and deep knowledge. Um, a lot of my Punjabi friends won't learn yoga in studios that don't have teachers that are Indians. And I understand why.
Yes. I mean, if you want to be a master of something, would you not go to the masters themselves who've been doing this for centuries?
Right. The painful part of it is that if the system was balanced and equitable for all, I
Mm-hmm.
think that there would be less tension around it, because you have like these incredible masters of yoga who live in India,
Mm-hmm.
who are completely disconnected from the corporate world of yoga that exists in the West, which is one of the biggest profitable businesses now, right?
Right.
The people who benefit from it are not people who come from that land.
Mm-mm. Not at all, which is really interesting. So we're talking about the commercialization,
Mm,
capitalization. It's now about money. You know, there are women here in California who are teaching it, maybe never been, gone, decided to do the research, but they have extra disposable income possibly, due to their spouse, where they can afford to go and make this a living and tell you the poses, but when you look maybe behind some hardened eyes, you don't see the spirituality in
yeah.
these hostile yoga teachers. I've seen it. I have easily walked in and out and go, I don't feel any of the yoga in it. Like, this is the most tense experience I've ever felt in my life, right? And so when you're coming from a place, because I find India to be a very sacred, special,
It
like,
is.
there's a reason souls keep reincarnating to that place, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you hold it sacred. You're not in it for the money.
Mm-hmm.
It was never the intention behind its origins. It was there to transcend. It was there to be in touch with. It was there to commune with yourself, God, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
So cultural appropriation is not always authentic. For us who watch others activate it unapologetically and recklessly, it's painful. To that I do say enough.
Mm-hmm.
I do say, I want to hear from you. I did look for that when it came to people I know that were not Black appropriating our culture. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to see what you had to say about Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
Were you more concerned about your brand than your stand on it? I
Right.
wanted to know
Mm-hmm.
from my girlfriends who are super excited about dating and being engaged to and having babies for celebrity Black athletes. Did you stand up now that you have mixed children?
Mm.
Are you able to get on those lines and protest with them? We say if you're gonna like our rhythms, take some of this blues, the rhythm and blue, take both.
Yes.
Come on
Yes.
for pride if you're true to it, right? So it's interesting,
Yes.
right? And again, it goes back into the narration, what's being told. So you say, one point in time in Africa, they're known as savages. Okay, the women were also known as not beautiful because they were not non-European.
Right.
But now I look and I see women getting their lips injected to have lips like me and my ancestors,
Mm-hmm.
or buttocks implants to have what me and my mom and family go to the gym to work off. We're just like, this is how we're built. Well,
right?
that's
They want to look
cultural
like you.
appropriation. Oh, yeah,
Mm,
but it wasn't in vogue until, like, let's say Kim Kardashian. They said,
mm,
"Oh, but on a white woman is beautiful." We had this forever, and it was, "Oh my god, look at that." They
mm.
look, isn't that deep? Same thing.
So deep.
So deep on so many levels.
Yes.
So cultural appropriation, have some responsibility. If you can come on and do it, take all of it. Take
Mm,
some of this
yes.
pain.
Absolutely. I remember being called a curry pot growing up, right?
Wow.
And now the sorts of people that would say that are the ones that are going to, go to the local Indian restaurant and order their, whatever they order. I was going to say chicken tikka masala, or I don't know,
Right,
whatever else they're going to be eating, right? But
right,
there it's okay.
right.
So that for me is like very displaced,
Yes.
they, if you want to step in and taste the culture, either dive in or stay at the door, right? Don't
Absolutely.
don't wear the dresses like they're costumes, because to us they matter. It's
Yes.
meaning.
Yes. Be mindful about it. Do
Mm,
not make this a Halloween costume, as I've seen in the US.
mm,
And the list could go on, from geishas to you name it. Like, at some point,
yeah.
you just have to stop. You just have to stop. I don't know. And again, I don't know if we're more mindful because we come from ethnic groups that have culture where maybe some just don't, and so they have no reference point. But I could never imagine disrespecting a community and doing that as someone who comes from another culture. Like, are we leading with that? Like, that just does. I can't even begin to wrap my head around it.
Doesn't make sense,
It
right?
doesn't make sense.
So is it like, how can we help others to be more mindful around cultural appropriation?
You tell them, just don't do it at this point, because we're just over it. I think just stop it. It really, just go in and give a compliment. How about that? How about we keep it old school? You
Mm,
you, you give praise where praise is due.
mm,
Be like, oh my goodness, I love this. I love your attire. I love it. Tell me about it. You
yeah,
don't have to go and rock it personally. Be
yeah.
inspired. That could be enough. I
Mm,
see artwork. I'm inspired. You don't see me painting Picassos at my home.
mhm,
Sometimes it's really just about complimenting and enjoying and watching the adornments.
mm. How do you as the person of color in that situation, deal with something that's uncomfortable? And I'll give you an example. um, you can relate in terms of hair when people have come and, oh, can I touch your hair? I've had that with my turban. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, is that, and they're touching me. I'm like, what are
Oh,
you doing? Like,
yeah.
I did not give you permission to touch me, and I
Yeah.
didn't give you permission to touch my crown. Like, this is sacred for me. You don't come and just like put your grubby hands on my crown.
No.
Has had it with his beard. It's like,
Oh,
oh, they've got their hands already in the beard, and they're like, can I touch it? And they're already.
no.
What do you do?
I I don't personally allow it, because, like you said,
What
it's our
about when they're
privilege.
already there? What about they're like already touching
I
you? What
I
do
do
you
step back because it is at some point an invasion of personal space. For so many perspectives. One, are your hands clean?
do?
Second, is your spirit clean?
Yes.
Like, what is it that you're transferring on to me?
But do we have to wear these as signs? So I should carry a little sign here that says, before you touch my turban, please ensure that you have asked my permission,
Oh,
washed
yeah.
your hands,
Oh,
got
yeah.
your intentions in check. Like,
Oh,
I
fine.
how in this civilized culture is it okay to come and like invade your space like that? It's like seeing a random pregnant woman and just going and rubbing her belly. Like, why
Yes.
would you do that?
Yes. And she has every right to say, whoa, step back, and put her hands around. And, I will say, here in America, we've now kind of got a funny sense of humor around it, where on Netflix, I think it is, there's a TV show called Dear White People. And everybody that I know has seen it, diverse, backgrounds, white, black, doesn't matter. They watch it and they fall out laughing because it's based on some stereotypes, but things that are also true to us culturally. And the opening episode is "Do not touch my hair," and so like there are T-shirts that say, "Yo, ask me first before you touch my." So it's things you can giggle about, but it's something that from a young age, my daughter from preschool. She goes, "Mommy, the teachers want to know, can they touch my hair? The kids want to know." And so I had to tell her how to communicate on her behalf. I said, would you like for them to? Does it feel good when they? She goes, "No." I said, "Then you have to say, excuse me, but please." So imagine you're 4, "Excuse me, but please don't put your hands in my hair." And so she became fierce about it.
Mm,
And people began to respect that.
mm.
Because the same way that I would not come up and just put my finger on your nose, the same. You own your body and you decide who you give permission to touch it. This is not a petting zoo.
Absolutely, it's not a petting zoo. I need one
No.
of those T-shirts, but I need it to say, "Please do not touch my turban."
Do you understand how much money right now you could probably make and sell that, where people could relate?
All right, I'm going to call you after we're done on the show. Let's set it up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the same with the hair wraps and, in African culture. And we wear scarves sometimes and bandanas here in I get it. If it's on you, it is for a reason.
Yes.
So it's about
Yeah.
mutual respect.
I mean, I can understand how it would be fascinating when it's new, right?
Hmm.
And there's that intrigue. It's like a child, right?
Mhm.
So I get that layer. That okay, it might come from a place of genuine curiosity, and because you're so drawn into the curiosity, you literally lose your sense of social conduct, and you're just like up in someone's face.
I hear you. I've never had that urge. I have never walked into a Hasidic Jewish community and wanted to touch someone's yarmulke.
Mm,
I just would go, "Oh my goodness." Like, 'cause again, I love and appreciate or celebrate cultural differences. So I'm like, "Oh, that's beautiful," or hijab. I mean, you just gotta think different. Like again, it's like having a passport. You go, and it's like looking outside of a window when you land in that country, and you just see the beauty of what that culture is presenting. I don't mind being in awe, and that's enough. I don't have to go and run and touch it. You know what I mean? Like
mm.
I am not programmed that way.
Me
Not
neither.
if it's food, that's a different, yeah. Or I'm like, "Oh, I love not." Like I'm like, "Oh, I love this." I love my chutney. Like I want to taste. But that's different. That's me being greedy in my palate. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, it would be completely different. I don't even know how to wrap my head.
Okay,
Just say, "Do step back."
yeah. I think I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna have a T-shirt of instructions of
Oh yeah.
a step-by-step checklist of
Oh yeah.
what to ask somebody who wears a turban and how to ask
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, and it's so beautiful. And again, like the symbolism, right? I like when I see men with beards, and that's something my father had just growing up. It's a sign of masculinity, but I just see it as the sacred masculine.
Mm,
Like my good, like there's a reverence for that. It's a reverence. It's very godlike.
mm,
Who am I to go run and touch her? And again, it tickles me because going back to what I was taught as a child and the stories you hear in the Bible, how people would run and touch the hem of Jesus just to be healed.
mm.
Different purpose, right?
Yeah.
They had heard about his miracles, but for them, it wasn't just let me, be annoying. They
Mhm.
wanted anointing. They
Yeah.
wanted ease from dis-ease. So it's just different.
They wanna connect with that energy.
That's it.
Yes.
The sacredness, right?
Hmm.
Oh, people.
Maisha, you have been incredible. It's been such a joy to share this conversation with you today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Before we wrap up, is there any message that you would like to give to our listeners? How can they support the work that you're doing at United We Slay, and where can they find you?
Yes. So we are right now, I use Instagram as United We Slay Media. And so I update with interviews of phenomenal women whose stories either I'm sharing or I bring in experts to help my listeners improve their life. I also post content on there to keep you inspired. And then I will leave updates of what's coming as far as the docu-series, things of that nature. So, communicate with me, follow, make suggestions, leave messages in my inbox. Is there something do you want me to discuss? Is there a person you want me to interview? Is there a badass person in your world whose story needs to be told? Share with me and I'll share it with the world. I use my platform for service. So please, and I love to communicate and I love to learn. So please just stay in touch and work with me and enlighten me so I can help others. And that's where we start.
That's beautiful. Thank you. And sorry. I hope everybody's going to go over to Instagram and
Yeah.
go and like and follow United We Slay Media to support this effort and help us all to gather together and lift each other up.
Yes, absolutely. And that's it. The beauty of it now is no one should feel that they are isolated and disconnected from anyone in the world. We have a global platform and tools and techniques that can now connect us. There is no reason why we should not have a diverse world to learn from each other. From our mouths to each other's ears, no middlemen, no or women telling our stories from a screwed a vision and,
Mhm.
and perspective, right?
Mhm.
So let's share each other's stories. Let's sit down
Yes,
and have more combos like this.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was such a joy.
Thank
Thank you to everybody who joined us, who was listening. Please don't forget to share this video with all of your friends and your family after we're done with the live. Go over and follow Kaur Voices on Facebook and go and check out the website kaurvoices.org. Thank you for tuning in to Kaur Voices Talk Show. Thank you, Maisha. You are wonderful.
Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.